like physical manifestation of minimalism, like you said, I think of like empty house, like nothing really in the house. But I also think of maybe like a Buddhist monk that embodies that ideology. I feel like one of their goals is like ultimate freedom of like just reaching the highest form of yourself and having the ultimate clarity and maybe your purpose and stuff. I just hear things like that and I'm like, how does that not sound appealing? Do I want to be a Buddhist monk? Like, no. Am I gonna try? I have no desire.
Yo, B, let's go.
You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth, yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Rebel Wisdom, your favorite two rebels here. I'm Julian. This is B. This week for you, we have a new topic, as always. We're going to talk about minimalism. I don't think we've talked about this at all or really woven it into any of our other topics. So we're pretty excited for this one as we get into it. So again, the topic, minimalism, we're going to kind of give you some thoughts on how we implement it in our lives as we always do, and just kind of our thoughts surrounding being minimal and living in that fashion. Today, we're going to tie in some literature, a book that B read. B, you want to kind of talk on that for quickly?
Yeah, so if you can see it on YouTube, here's the book. But if you can't see it, it's called Goodbye Things on Minimalist Living by Fumio Sasaki. So it's like a Japanese author, but it's been translated into English, so it's English words. And then I saw this book at, I think it was like one of the discount books stores with like used books. And I saw it, I was like, you know what? I just been piling things up in my apartment over the years. So I'm just trying to maybe get a different take on what minimalist is about, and then trying to live a way more in the stoic and the traditional Japanese ways of, I think, just makes life simple, at least for me. So
Yeah,
we can talk about that today.
Okay. As you've mentioned in previous episodes, you are part Japanese. So I think that'll be, I know, for instance, in my experience living in Japan before, and I did, on the topic of minimalism, I see a lot of things culturally to tie in from them. So I'll definitely be mentioning that. And on that note, like from a cultural perspective, I think I haven't been everywhere in the world. I am trying to get to all 7 continents. I'm at 5. But from most of the other spots I've traveled, America is on the end opposite of living a minimal lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's just very much embedded in American culture to have things, have stuff, and material influence. And so I think that'll be one of our talking points. And again, I'm super interested to hear from you, also being that you've lived in another country and, you know, are part Japanese as well.
Yeah, I think the cultural thing is huge because, like, in Japan, it's not, I don't say frowned upon, but it's definitely not a positive thing to talk about your material belongings. It's not positive to talk about your money. Things that, like, maybe as you grew up in an American household, the taboo things that you shouldn't have talked about at the dinner table, like religion, politics, money.
Yeah.
Those are, like, even expanded on outside the dinner table. Like, it's kind of like all around.
Okay.
And I mean, you see it. People dress conservatively over in Japan for the most part. And yeah, it's like people are just not taking pictures of all these things that they have just to brag about it. It's just a different culture.
It's different. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the style of dress. I'm going to take it back for a second. What do you, when you hear the term minimalist, like for me, a couple things come to mind, but I'm like, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of minimalist? Like, what facet of life do you think about?
Definitely, I'm thinking about stuff at your house.
Okay.
When you walk in, I imagine a very light, a lighted room that has like a little, like an orange yellow tint from the natural sunlight. There's like a little plant in the corner, no TVs, maybe there's a couch, and just pretty much having the essentials of life.
Okay. I didn't know if I was alone in thinking that, because when I think minimalist, I also think like kind of style of living. But I mean, that can encompass a lot, job and stuff. But I think of the home, like you walk into somebody's home, you took it to another level with the lights. But from material objects within the home, yeah, I'm thinking like cookware, which is like out of sight, like put up, and then like yeah, no TV, maybe chair, like something to sit on, you know, a minimal bedroom, like no nightstand, no dress, just a bed. So I agree with that. And I don't know where that stems from, but that's what I think. Because I do think we can introduce in this topic a minimalist like ideas within how you spend money. Like you said, style of dress, even probably like leisure hobbies or something. You know, I don't know. But that's not, none of that comes to mind when I hear the term. So that's why I wanted to baseline it and see like what do you actually think when you hear minimalist?
Money was actually one of the big things that they talked about in this book, because a lot of the things that you have possession of, it kind of brings some sort of identity to you in your regular
Right.
life.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I think the easiest one is like a car. You know,
Okay.
like when you spend something, I'm not saying to be a minimalist you shouldn't have a car. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But when people have luxury, nicer cars, a lot of their identity is tied to that car. It's like they're so proud to drive it. It's like part of them, it feels like. And I think you know this story. I think I talked about it in another episode before. But for me, like I'm just not a car person. I just want a car that works, and I mean, it would be nicer to have a nice car, obviously, but I rather have a decent car that works that's really cheap. So I just went into the dealership. I was like, hey, I'm not a car guy. I can't do any maintenance on it.
Yeah.
So just give me the brand new car that's the cheapest here. And then I got the Kia Forte, which was like 23,000 at the time. And then we'll probably drive it for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
But so that's the car thing's another one. How they dress is another one. There's a lot of identity attached to it. But when you go minimalist, like you just have the bare essentials. Like, so in another way, that you're just kind of giving up care for those. You can try to look good as much as you can, but that's not your priority anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, you spend significantly less money because you just don't see the need to buy stuff like that. And the author in this book, he goes like pretty extreme on minimalism. Like he literally doesn't have anything. Like he says he can't put his entire belonging in like a tiny suitcase, which I can't do that. Right?
I don't know anybody that can't.
Yeah, and that might be a little extreme, but
yeah, definitely.
I'm just thinking if I could get at least to 30% towards that direction, I'll be better off.
Yeah.
Type of things. And yeah, with the money, I mean, we have a lot of money episodes in this podcast, and saving money is a lot of topics that just naturally come about. And minimalist, it's gonna be brought up in this episode too. Just by naturally not wanting stuff or avoiding things to store at your house or for your possession, you just naturally start saving money, which obviously there's going to be just so many benefits.
Yeah.
But I'm not here to talk about the money benefits, primarily the benefits of not owning as many things as I guess normal people would.
Right.
And I think a lot of people should be, or I think they will be surprised by so many benefits that minimalism is supposed to bring. Not saying that, I experienced everything like that I just talked about in the book.
Yeah. I hear you, man. I think society says, I'm not going to say it should, it says you should have a lot of things, but it definitely, and again, this is speaking to America exclusively, or at least like in what I'm about to say. I think America creates the environment where having a lot of stuff is like, I don't know, maybe it's a status thing, either a lot of stuff or, brands, right? The type of things or the brand of things you have, it gives you status. And obviously that status translates to an emotional thing. And now like, you're like, oh, I have now reached this new status. I am of this status. So now I feel better about myself. So I think like minimalism, I think most people aren't like hey, I want to save more, like I'm gonna become a minimalist. It's more you have something causes that shift in mindset. I don't know whether if we want to say minimalism is a identity, a mindset, whatever. Maybe we'll work to that through this episode. But they choose that, and as a byproduct, you saving is one of them. But you experience these somewhat beneficial things that could come from minimalism. But I feel like it's never promoted, which I think is what you and I are going to go counter to in this episode. That it's like nobody puts down minimalism, but it's always everybody props up the opposite of minimalism, like, oh, if you have all this stuff, or if you have this type of thing where you don't need stuff, or you don't need this brand to live a good, as subjective as that is, life.
Yeah. One thing that you reminded me when you were talking just now, you know how it's definitely not common, but you hear about hoarder houses in America, right?
Yeah.
That is the total opposite end of the spectrum as a minimalist, right?
I know one. Yeah.
Hold on. And then now looking back in the Japanese culture, I'm sure like hoarder houses exist in Japan. I'm sure like if you looked up on Google, is there hoarder houses in Japan? I'm sure it would be there. But I've never in like daily conversation, never heard about a hoarder house or anyone having a hoarder house or their relative or their friends or anything like that.
Yeah.
Which you just said, oh, you know someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which just kind of culturally speaks to how much they value the material possession in the United States. And that it's like, it's almost toxic.
Yeah.
Right? Just having so much stuff. I feel like if you look at both spectrums of having a hoarder house versus being a complete minimalist, like to the point that you just look crazy, like I feel like the minimalist side is even better, much better than the hoarder.
If you're talking about, like, if you're looking at extremes, like
if you're looking at the max on both ends,
got you.
So I think just naturally, just the principle of minimalism, I think, is better overall than just having things that you don't need.
Yes, that I agree with. And I do want to preface this with, and this is a lot of things we talk about. I am not like the perfect minimalist. I have 2 bookshelves that are on either end of my TVs, and like I try to make like each quadrant of the bookshelf has a little theme that like represents me. It's literally just like stuff that represents me. Like one is I got like Nike books, and one is certain magazines that like represent like different parts of my life. I like to create a atmosphere or vibe, and I have things to do that. But at the same time, I try to like maximize the space that I live in. I don't have, a bunch of stuff like clutter necessarily. So I almost think minimalism is a spectrum. It's not like you're a minimalist or you're not, but you can work to become more minimalistic, or you can fall away from that. But I don't, it's not like I've shed these things, like now I'm a minimalist. I think it's something you can work to, as a lot of things are.
Yeah.
It might be
like
obvious, but
bettering yourself. Like you can always better yourself no matter what, but you're never perfect self.
Right.
And even on the identity thing that you talked about earlier, I would hate to meet someone that identified as like a minimalist. I feel like that would be similar to someone identifying as like a vegetarian, or like I
don't know why it's so funny.
What's the body weight workout people?
Bodybuilder?
No, but not bodybuilder. They just do body weight stuff.
Oh my, CrossFit.
Yeah, CrossFit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, the jokes is like, how do you know if they do CrossFit? It's like, oh, they'll tell you. So I imagine like a if you're like claiming your identity as a minimalist, that would be that kind of level, I would imagine.
Interesting. Yeah.
In the book, they even talk about the goal is not minimalism. Minimalism is just a stepping stone into, there's 5 main things that they cover in the book, and one of them is like finding yourself and being happy.
Yeah.
Like that's a stepping stone into achieving that step. And I think it's more of a natural, healthier way to look at it, instead of if you're like, oh, hey, what do you identify? I'm a minimalist. Like that. If that conversation came up on the first time we met, I would think he or she is a lunatic.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, it's like, get me away from this person. You know what I mean?
That's pretty funny. No, I definitely see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm interested to hear about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
No,
kind
that's
of,
very cool.
I guess I can
Yeah, I was
go
gonna say
through.
let's dive into that.
It is interesting. So I'm just grabbing, like, I'm not going to be showing every page, but I went through the book and just highlighted stuff that I want to talk about for this podcast. And so I'm going to be bringing it up. I'm not going to be saying, hey, this is from the book every single time. But the first thing that it says is, it's kind of obvious, but everyone started as a minimalism. So when I just read that title, I think of two things where, like, when people are born into this world, they have nothing,
Right.
right? And as you get accustomed to culture, you develop those, like, things that you think that are required or necessary
Yes.
to just not so, like just having material possessions that you don't need,
Right.
right? But another thing that I was thinking about it is a lot of the ways that, humans have evolved in crazy ways over the years. But when you look at in today's world, a lot of the things that, like, we do, there's a function that a human is able to do is
Right.
because those things were required for survival back in the day,
Yes.
right? So I'm thinking about it like that, where back in the day, the Homo sapiens that started walking and started hunting and started farming, like, they were minimalist for the most part.
For sure. Yes. Yes.
So as that lifestyle is ingrained in our DNA, I just feel like there's so many benefits as a byproduct. Like, for example, is like completely different category, but processed foods. Like, processed foods, they didn't have processed foods back in the day, but because the technological advancements with the ease of processed foods in our diet, it's like hard for our body to digest those foods sometimes.
Harder. Yep.
For some people, and they bring a lot of health issues, even though it's like a technological advancement, right?
Yes.
So I'm just kind of thinking about it like that, where a lot of the traditional values that was ingrained in how we lived and how we survived as a human, I think we, as a society generally progresses, we get further and further away from that. But just kind of looking back at those values and seeing, hey, by fighting our cultural norms today, it could be more of a benefit to your life to look back, in the ways that our ancestors lived.
Yeah. Dude, isn't that so crazy to think about? I think about stuff like this sometimes, and it's like society progresses, develops, whatever, to get better. And then the better happens. And then at some point on the timeline, you find yourself trying to revert back to before you were better. It's like, so many things in life are cyclical, like fashion, music. Like, you start to hear people are sampling like the old school songs that already existed, styles that were like hot 30 years ago, and then they're like, oh, that's whack. Like, people are bringing those back up. Just so many things. In economic ways, certain things are cyclical, but like, there's so many things that we get past, and then for whatever reason we go back to, and I'm just like, this is fascinating. Like, I don't know, I feel like that's a whole nother topic in itself, just development. Like, is there a point? I feel like there's like a golden point where we want to, in whatever the category is, like, develop, and then do we just plateau and like stay here? Because is there a point where you can overdevelop? And we talked about AI recently, and like that, it's, I don't want to get on a side tangent for too long, but AI is being implemented for good reasons, right? It has great intent and for what it's being implemented for, but there's obvious reasons that we all think about, the like, oh, if this goes too far, like, this can happen. So it's just interesting. The more stuff we get and the more things that are available to us, to your point, I'm trying to bring it full circle here. We were born with nothing. Now, obviously that's pretty extreme to think about, but it's kind of interesting. Like, what do you really need? This culture is so saturated with, I think, wants, and we lose sight of what do you actually just need. And if we strip back down to what you just need, you may find happiness or clarity, or who knows what you'll find. So I know that's one thing, like I try to work on in my personal life, is just being oversaturated with stuff.
Yeah, there's so many things
hard.
to. We were just having a conversation. I forgot who it was. It was within the past week, but we were talking about how we went to this like local mom and pop sandwich shop, right? And there's so many options to choose from. It was kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
Now, when I saw that menu, it just reminded me of the In-N-Out Burger menu, like where they have like 5 things that you can pretty much customize,
Mhm.
and they're just so much easier to choose from. And same thing with, and this is tying it back to the minimalist thing, is the stuff that you have, the clothes that you wear. It's just such a simple life that, because you don't want to focus your life on what you wear. That's not the focus
Exactly.
of your
Right.
life.
Right. Not at all.
It's like, how Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, they always wear the same thing because they don't want their mental energy going to things that
I
doesn't
have
really
heard that.
matter for them. Just
Yeah.
grab the same clothes. They got 5 pairs of them. Wear it. Wear same shoes. Good
Right.
to go.
Right.
So I think that's more of a prestigious life.
Mhm.
Just being able to focus on what you want to focus on and not focusing on the stuff that's so irrelevant. It's
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. And then even if you are focusing on something that's maybe not as relevant, is there like value added, or can you implement it in your life positively? Because some things are just, and I mean, not every single thing is in your life is going to have some element of growth to it. Like, right, like you play video games from time to time, and I'm pretty sure you like connect with some of your buddies doing that. So I mean, that's kind of a positive. But for the most part, video game, it's a leisure activity just to get your mind off things. Like me, like I like clothes and fashion. It's not. I like to kind of explore creativity within that. But I mean, for the most part, it's just kind of like a hobby. But I think there's a part where we can get caught up in too much of, things like that, where it could detract from, some things we're really trying to focus on, that a minimalist lifestyle could help us get towards. Yeah. So yeah, the reverting back to a baby like concept is interesting in like the grand scheme of life. Like that is how we're brought into this world.
Yeah, just pretty much programmed to live, and we just that programming, changes as we grow older.
Yes.
From what you're talking about with the AI stuff, the next thing that I have is it's a whole section on how more technology helps us minimize things.
It could,
And
yeah.
it's a double-edged sword. We can have more stuff, but then if you use it properly, you can minimize it. And then when I was highlighting this, it reminded me of what you said. I think it was in the AI episode where you went to a county fair with your mom, and then you had like 5 different things laid out, antique stuff.
Yep.
And you're like, hey, all of those things are in my phone as a capability, as a function.
Exactly.
So that right there is just having a phone that pretty much sits in your pocket or in your hand, right? So you're not cluttering everything. You're not cluttering anything.
Yeah.
You can take those 5 things, otherwise that would have been at your house or your apartment, but it's just now in your pocket. And he talks a lot about taking pictures of the things before you get rid of it as a minimalist, because this book talks about the benefits of minimalism, and also the second I don't say second half, but like there's a whole section on how to actually achieve that with tips and step by step and strategies. And one of the things that he says is, people don't want to get rid of something because they have actual memories attached to them.
Yeah.
Right. It's not the object. Like, if you have a mouse, and this one was gifted by someone that was very important to you, and you have an identical other mouse that was just you bought, it doesn't mean anything, right? The only reason this is important because someone important gave it to you.
Right.
So with that, if you have a picture of it, he's arguing that you still have the memory, you just don't have the object.
I never heard
Because
that.
it's not what the object is important; it's the memories that's attached to the object that's important.
Okay.
And so he always says that just snap a picture, and even if you snap a picture, you have a likelihood of being reminded of and being able to keep that for much longer than the actual physical thing.
Actual thing.
Because like how many, I don't know, childhood things that you just like you didn't mean it to throw away, but then you just can't find anymore, right? I'm sure there's a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
If you snap a photo, it's in your iCloud Drive or Google Photos. Like it's gonna be there.
That's super cool. And you know, like I'm big into pictures too. Partially because my memory is crap, but also like I've actually never thought about it like that. But yeah, I just try to like capture memories because over time, not even with a bad memory, just you just don't interact with that object or if it was an experience, like if that experience doesn't come up in conversation, it kind of gets lost. But if you have a picture of it and you'll come across a picture, it's like, oh, like I remember this. It brings back that emotion. So that's a pretty interesting concept. Sounds weird when you think about like, I don't know, you have a doll or something somebody has, and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna take pictures of the doll just like before I throw a doll away. It sounds kind of weird, but it actually makes sense from the standpoint you gave, just to kind of capture that memory. That's pretty cool.
Do you think I just curious, do you think on a spectrum of 10 being the crazy lunatic minimalist and 0 being the average person,
Mhm.
right? So if you cross over to 0 to the negative side, you're like going hoarder side, but then we'll just keep that out. Where would you say you're at personally?
I used to think I was kind of a minimalist, and it's funny, I do exactly what you were saying. Like I like to get a small thing, nothing too crazy, but like small things that kind of capture where I've been in the world specifically, not this. So this isn't like frequently, but I like to have like little things from around the world. But I think I'm organized. So sometimes it seems like, or I'll tell myself I'm a minimalist, but I think I'm just more so organized than a minimalist, which kind of makes it, again, like I said, gives the facade that I'm a minimalist. But I know there are things that I could shed for a fact. So I think I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle. I might be like slightly more minimalistic than the average person, like barely, but I'm not. I know I have extra just like things, and I just say things as a vague term to capture different categories of my life that I could do without in my life. That one or just I just simply don't need, or that two without them I could maybe have more clarity on one thing or the other. So I actually don't think I'm too much of a minimalist, but I do love the concept of minimalism. And again, not just, hey, I want to have less stuff in my life. Not really that, just more so of what minimalism could introduce in your life. Like if your mind isn't cluttered with all these things. I think you can have like a minimalistic thought process too. Like my mind is very, very scattered. I remember the other, like, just to give you a quick day in the life of Julian, like in the house. I was going to a room to do something, maybe like pick, like I got to cut something, and then my scissors are in the other room. Like, let me go in this room to get the scissors. And like on my way to get the scissors, I'm like, I gotta do laundry today. Like, so I divert my path, go get the laundry. So now I'm grabbing my laundry to go to laundry, and then I was like, wait, I gotta heat the oven up for the food. So like, set the laundry down, go heat the oven. Like, organize my thoughts, or maybe just have and maybe that has nothing to do with minimalism, a better plan, but I feel like they kind of go hand in hand, where if you can just organize your thoughts or maybe cut out certain things in your life that you don't have to think about at all, it just frees up brain space. And then obviously, like we said, the first things we think of if you have a minimalistic house, like it frees up physical space as well. So I think I'm a very average minimalist. Just like knowing you between two of it, like you're definitely more of a minimalist than me. And I think I'm striving to be a little bit more. And not to, again, not to, because I do like things and I do, like to collect things for certain reasons. So I'm not going to erase like certain parts of my life. Like I do enjoy that. But like I said, I have room for improvement there for sure. For sure. What about you?
I would think that I'm pretty nothing compared to the author. Like I'm nowhere
you say
near his
he's
level.
extreme. Yeah.
But I do like I think it's cool. Just kind of I don't know. I wouldn't say cool, just to rebel against society. But I've always been a rebellious person.
Mm.
Like when I was a kid, like I thought that was like rebellious. But then I never ended up getting one.
I was gonna
But
say, which is crazy because you don't have one.
now at this point, I see so many, like everyone pretty much has a tattoo.
Yeah.
So I'm now rebelling against that. I'm like, I'm not getting a tattoo.
That's funny.
And yeah, with that, it's just like, I think I feel better when I walk into my space and I just have bare minimum essential things. And then I'm just thinking of like those memes that it's like they show an entire apartment with a pillow and blanket and like a TV and a couch that's about it.
Yeah.
And then girls are like, "Oh, guys are just okay living like this."
Yeah.
Like that's me. That's me.
Yeah.
I don't want to buy stuff. And I mean, as you become an adult, you start making more money and you have the luxury of buying these unnecessary things, which I have been victim of as well. But I have been pretty good about just throwing stuff away.
Okay.
Which, like, I don't even try to resell it or anything. It's like,
Got you.
I'm just throw it away.
Okay.
Which definitely keeps the stuff under control. And just kind of trying to tie into the next thing, the author talks about how we all get used to the material things that we have.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is going to tie into money as well. But there was there's like a phenomenon that's named after this, like, I know he was French. He was this French guy, and he lived comfortably back in the day.
Okay.
And he got this like super nice robe, this red robe.
Yeah.
From, I don't know how he got it, from a friend or something like that. And that robe was free, right? He got it as a gift. But then when he started wearing that robe, he was like, "Oh, like I need to upgrade this because I have this robe. Like I'm like a person of status now."
Yeah, there's the
like,
status.
"Oh, now you get a different table, but then now the chairs look weird."
Yeah.
Now the chairs look weird. Now your bookshelf looks, and that whole cycle of effect, you end up spending much more. And guess what? In literally like 3 months, you just get used to the feeling.
Yeah.
And when you buy, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say real quick before we stray too far from this. Do you think there's a difference between, like, do you think you can be both a minimalist and have quality things? Because going back to the meme thing, I think it's partially girls saying that because like in those pictures, there's nothing. There's like a bed, a TV, and like a bed, a TV, and a chair. But it's like a lawn chair, which is like low quality, an air mattress, which is like an inflatable bed, which is low quality, and then like a little computer screen TV. So I think it's a combination of there's lack of things and there's lack of quality in those things. So I'm, again, to rephrase the question, do you think you can be minimalist but still have like not necessarily high quality, but like good quality products that you do have?
I think you can lean towards, you wouldn't be a perfect minimalist, but you can lean on that spectrum in a good way.
Okay.
And just the things that you do decide to buy can be, very essential, and
right.
It could be multi-use purposes.
Yeah.
Or you can accomplish so much on those things. Yeah, so I'm not against the idea at all.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm starting to think too, because some of the stuff that's, I don't know, like clothes, bed, cars, you can buy the expensive stuff for the look, or you can buy the, like, maybe not as much of a name brand, but like have a really quality stuff.
Exactly. Yes.
That's gonna last you so long.
And that's what I'm getting at. Yeah. Like you can get lower price, and sometimes it's even better. Yeah, like you said, for the cars, like you can get a cheaper car and it lasts longer. It might not be the flashiest thing on the road, but if it's efficient, and that's partially like kind of what I was getting at.
And then, I mean, me being Asian, like, we try to get the value for everything.
Yeah.
And it feels good knowing that you get your value.
Right.
It's like,
I do think. No, go ahead.
Like I bought Sperry's my junior year of high school. This brown pair of Sperry's.
Still rocking them, huh?
I did no. No, my wife, she made me get rid of it because it was so like it was trash quality.
Shout out to wifey.
And I wore that from junior year high school to when I got out the Navy, which was 2023.
Yeah.
Literally 9 years. I wore that thing.
Right.
And it was fine. I kind of used it as like a slipper towards the end.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it worked.
Good. Yeah.
And that was probably like $80 back in the day. You know,
right.
that was it.
So that and that's what I'm thinking. Like, and maybe this is like a detriment of a minimalist. I feel like you can be a minimalist, but there's a happy medium. And this is when talking about like quality of, I guess, products and materials. Because if you're an absolute minimalist, I don't know if that's a term I just coined or I don't know, but maybe you try to save, like you try to get the least amount of things, and of those things you try to get the cheapest version of those. And I feel like in the long run, that could actually go against minimalism. Or, you know, like if you buy the cheapest thing of something, you might just have to get it so many times because it breaks or wears. Whereas if you get not the name brand, not the top line, but a middle grade version of that product, where, like you said, it lasts longer, is probably better than the cheapest, and it might even be better than the high brand, then it's like you kind of said, like maximizing that value. I think there's I don't know, that just like plays a part.
Yeah, everyone knows that brand. That's not high quality, but it's like known to be of value.
Like it's right, like
in the car space, like Toyota and Honda, like they're known to run forever, but they're not the flashiest.
They're not, no,
right?
No. But it'll get you where you need to go. Yeah. Okay.
I get that.
That was good. Little tangent, something to think about. Yeah.
What do we have here? It says, when what we own becomes who we are. We kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
But I don't like the idea of some external things like kind of affecting my identity or like the person that I am. So I'm so against the idea of like current medical, I don't know, treatment. Okay. Like, hey, I have problem X.
Yeah.
And the solution to that problem X is, hey, take this pill. Like, I don't like that thought.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't think taking a pill is going to be good for you in the long term anyway. I don't think it might be a band-aid to the solution.
Yeah.
And
so it's good for that one thing, but then it got side effects or something else. So yeah.
And another thing, it's another one of those things that, you know, people back in the day, they didn't grow up with just pop a pill and you're good to go. I'm not totally avoiding that because we have those luxuries because of the technological advancements. But if that problem can be solved by having a better diet or having better sleep, having better physical exercise, or having more happiness in your life, purpose in your life, like I'd rather go that route instead of just, hey, pop this pill, you're good to go. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. And again, that goes back to what I was saying. Like there's so many instances of things where I'm like, back in the day, they didn't have that and they got bought. Like people survived. Everything was good. Now, granted, people are living longer these days, probably due to, you know, advancements or newfound knowledge, advancements in the medical field, etc. But there's so many things. It's like, even like if it's a kid, and again, I don't have kids, but we got to do this, we got to do that. You got to hold, like, they just didn't exist before, and people grew up, they executed their lives. Like, it's just, man, it's so interesting to think about. I can think of countless examples. But yeah,
I want to go back to the money thing, so this guy talks about how he mentions in the book at least like 2 or 3 times where he talks about how if he wants to move to a new apartment or a new city, and you know, in Japan, you don't have to live in that city where you work because the public transportation is so advanced and literally on time and stops at anywhere you go.
Yeah.
Even if you work in Tokyo, like you don't have to live in Tokyo. You can live like an hour away. And it's like a very common thing for people to commute via train and stuff like that. And one of the things that he talks about was, again, it takes him like 1 suitcase to pack his entire things. And when he's moving in and out of an apartment completely, He says like it literally takes me less than 30 minutes. With that being said, with the added benefit of being a minimalist, he was like, I can get the smallest apartment or living situation that I'm comfortable of getting, and it's just so much cheaper to live than to get a super expensive,
Right.
apartment that's luxury and then you don't need.
Right. This, you did say this dude was on the extreme end, but I'm just like, does this dude not own a bed? Like this,
I don't think he does.
It's wild to me. But on this note, this hits close to home for me because, as I told you, where I'm at now, I'm trying to move like in the city, and one big thing I'm running into is I'm gonna have to downsize.
Yeah,
and it's like, I got too much stuff. Go figure. So I'm gonna have to get a storage unit, or I'm gonna have to sell it, or I'm gonna have to throw it away. And it's like, if I lived a more trimmed lifestyle, maybe, this move, to this author's point, would be that part of the move. I wouldn't have to think about it. It'd be like much easier.
Yeah. And people that's on the FIRE train, the financial independence, retire early group, we, in that episode, I think what was it? It was like episode
like 2 or so. That was
episode 5, financially independent, retire early, FIRE movement. And we kind of rebelled against that, but in that conversation, we talked about one of the aspects of FIRE is lean FIRE, which is to invest as much as you can so it covers the bare essentials of life. And it may not be the life that you want to live, but for a lot of people, living, that's going to naturally bring about minimalist habits. Because if you're trying to retire early at like age 40, and then you can live very minimalistically but still comfortably at $40,000 a year, then following the 4% rule, you just need $1 million invested. Which, if you start investing like right out of college, $1 million is not anything crazy to like achieve. Most everyone with the right financial habits and earning potential and the hard work ethic, disciplined life, they can achieve that.
Yes.
So the minimalist, like, it definitely it goes well with the FIRE movement.
Like what
and
you
that's
did,
what he doesn't necessarily talk about. I don't think the Japanese believe in the FIRE movement. They will work till they die. But he kind of talks about it. It's like, yeah, like, I'm not stuck to a location. I'm not stuck to anything. I just live so free because of being
amazing.
Minimalist.
Yeah.
And that's the life that I aspire. Maybe it may not be 30 minutes for me to move into an apartment.
Yeah, that's
but if it can be 2 hours,
right,
drive there, maybe do like 3 loads, I can fit it in my car and my wife's car, and then we're good to go. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be cool. I would like to expound on that. You made me think of a couple of things, most of which I forgot. But one, you were talking about needs, and you said living a disciplined lifestyle and all that, which again is a common thread that comes up among us. And I think, right, this isn't easy just to, on this spectrum, start leaning into the minimalist lifestyle, but it's definitely going to take some discipline. But with that, you said something about like the things you need, and I want to tie back. We're referencing a lot of previous episodes in this one, but in one episode we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I think this is kind of fascinating because I just pulled it up, and I'll go over it briefly, starting from the bottom to the top. It's in a pyramid structure. It talks about psychological needs, followed by safety and security, followed by love and belonging, followed by self-esteem, and then at the apex is self-actualization. And I'm just thinking, other than that second level tier of safety and security, most of those things are intangible, like concept. Like, you don't need physical things for. And furthermore, if you like love and belonging, if you have less things and you can streamline your life and your thoughts, you can probably pour into more relationships, and you can probably maybe build your network, and you can probably foster more loving and belonging. Or physiological needs like water, shelter, clothes. Okay, some of those are material too, but it's just this essence of like stripping all the like superfluous extra stuff in your life. I think it kind of helps you climb this pyramid of, one of the categories was self-esteem. If you're not worried about like, oh, do I got the freshest fit on and like how many compliments I get? If you're not using that for your self-esteem and you can find like intrinsic self-esteem because you don't have all these extra things, I think you're gonna go a lot further, and it's more substantial, won't be as fleeting, because if your self-esteem is drawn from like what outfit you got on the day you don't have a nice outfit on, or you can't afford, like, is your self-esteem going to be on the floor? You know what I mean? It's kind of an extreme example, but I just think it's interesting that we referenced Maslow's hierarchy of needs previously, and looking at that, which is kind of this paradigm used to determine how you can get kind of live a fulfilling life and get to this self-actualization. I think minimalism helps in that endeavor, which is just kind of a wild thing to like all tie together again, because you were talking about like the thing, kind of focusing on the things you need. And to this author, like, he only has like the bare essentials, which again I think is a bit extra, but it highlights our point.
So that was episode 8.
That was 8.
Episode
okay.
8, wants versus needs.
There we go.
And I like the episode too.
Yeah.
And I think you're onto something, because you came up with that your own, but then there's the one thing to take away from this entire book, if anyone were to read it, is that it sounds so cheesy, it sounds so cliche, but he talks about what you're talking about. It's like, ultimately being a minimalist helped me just be happy overall. Mm-hmm. And because I'm able to, if you get rid of one thing here, is that going to change your life? Probably not. But when you only have the essentials, you're kind of forced to, pour into the relationships that you have, pour into the hobbies that you have, the work that you have, just like fulfilling things in your life that you rather do that's important to you. He's able to focus so much more time on that. And because he doesn't have all this clutter possession in his life, as I'm saying this, it sounds so corny, right? It's like, oh, like that's some BS. And I'm not saying that I live that way. I don't. Mm-hmm. But reading it makes sense to me. It's not out of the world.
Right.
Concept.
I agree.
And a lot of people, they will never, ever get to that position, or even think about whether they need to be a minimalist or try to get rid of a few things, mm-hmm. So I'm glad you brought that up organically, because that was one of the things I was going to just pull from the book.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good, as we're saying, like, just side benefits to being a minimalist. I'm sure it'll come up, but yeah, I want to hear your next point.
With the happy things, I think one of the big things, he has it on the tips list number 1.
Okay.
But he talks about how having fewer things doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have less satisfaction. Right? Because I think that's where people's main thing is. People buy stuff and keep stuff because they become, or they get some sort of like dopamine hit.
Yeah.
If you only truly kept the things that you needed, they're not going to have that much in their house.
Right.
I would think.
Yeah.
And we talked about earlier, like, you were talking about how before the podcast, you were about to buy the new iPhone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think by the time this episode airs, it's already going to be out.
Yeah.
You'll probably already have it, maybe. When you buy that, it's like an essential, like iPhone, you could, in today's age, it's almost like a necessity level, like object, right? We can pretty much all agree.
Yeah, which is crazy, but low key.
But when you first open that nice packaged iPhone product, Apple product, you're like, the iPhone's so clean, like you're about to peel that thing, that you feel so good. But then in 3 months, like, it's still just as important, but just like, it's just your phone, right? Like, like you just kind of use it on a day to day.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people are having the hardest time, I think, in my opinion, that's trying to, if they were to go the minimalist route, it could be hard for them.
Yes.
Because I think they equate their satisfaction on the things that they have and that they buy, which it's not true at all.
Dude.
It's not even close.
Yes. I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. And I think it's to the point of people assign value to things, right? And I think that's a byproduct of kind of society. Society makes X, Y, and Z things cool. People want these things. Then we assign value to them in our individual lives. So it's like, okay, I need this thing because it has value. If we can, and this, I kind of got this from listening to you talk just now. I feel like if we can almost repurpose satisfaction, right? Like you were saying, these things that have value, which we've societally assigned, essentially, not everything, but most things. If you don't have that thing for long enough, like you will find other ways to find satisfaction, maybe more organic or natural ways. Friendships, like you said, I'm just reiterating what you said, friendships, hobbies, work, because you're not running to your iPhone. You're not, I don't know, doing whatever your fix or vice or you find fun, right? So, but to your point, it's going to be hard in the beginning. But if you can like repurpose that satisfaction and then just once you're doing it on that spectrum and just kind of keep leaning into that, maybe you go on a walk and you're like, man, this walk feels really good. Like the sun's hitting me. I'm getting steps in. I feel healthy. I got mental clarity, just one example, but you'll find other ways to maybe like repurpose your time and then ultimately like repurpose your satisfaction. So I think I think it's that, I mean, it's again, societal. Back to the being born thing. I can't remember if we talked about this in other podcasts, but like you said, you're born, we have nothing. We're a blank slate. And again, depending on your country, i.e. your environment you grow up on, that will determine your happiness or your satisfaction. Like there's some people in other countries, there's been studies that back this, that there's kids on the street that have higher happiness than the average American child of the same age, and they have a fraction of what they have. They have like clothes, like food, and they're like they're just out in the streets playing whatever. And you have a kid here that has clothes, iPad, sports team,
iPad.
You name video game, and they're like pissed off, don't have a good image of themselves, depressed at a young age. Like, why is that? It's a result of environmental stimulus to some degree. You know what I mean? So yeah, dude, I think it's very much like the value that's assigned to things, and then which that's not going to go away. Society's going to keep doing that. So like, don't count on society, but it's on us if you want to, as individuals, to kind of repurpose that. And again, it's a spectrum, so it's not like cut out everything, but shed some weight here and there where you can, and try to like find other outlets. I think
when I was in elementary school, I was friends with this one guy. He had a younger brother. He was probably in like first or second grade. I was in fifth grade, I think.
Yeah.
And then I was over at his house, and then it was younger brother's like birthday 2 weeks ago, whatever. And then he got, his gift box from his grandparents or whatever, right? It was and I remember, I don't know if it was like, I don't know, it's not important for this story, but basically, when he opened the box, he had the birthday card, and he got a couple pairs of socks, and he got a book. And this guy started crying. He was like so mad. He just got books, a book and socks, and I was just thinking about it, and it was like, yes, like people will be so happy in parts of the country if they even got a gift, first of all. Then got a birthday card because someone was thinking about them. Got socks because they don't even have socks or they were worn out. Or books or like education because they want education so bad. And then we just kind of forget a child's like always a good one to bring up because whatever they do, you can't really blame them too much because they're a child.
Right.
They also bring out to the world their true feelings. Like, if I got socks from from whoever, I'll be like, I mean, thank you. Like, I don't really need the socks. I wouldn't be necessarily happy, to be honest. Right. But I'm not going to be angry in front of them. Right. I also have emotion control. Whereas kids is like harder for them. So you kind of see the natural 100% state of what they're thinking. And I think it's just always interesting. To think about stuff like that.
Definitely. It's all perspective, because I also understand, because we're in America, we're in afforded things. this isn't like neglect everything that's avoided to us. Like we have nice things, and some of those nice things should be taken advantage of. Like you said, technological advancement can actually, in some ways, help you organize or minimize your way of living. So this isn't saying disregard everything that's available because other people elsewhere don't have these things. No, but I think there's some strategy behind it. Also, I got you on some socks for your birthday, bro. You can expect a fresh pair of socks from me.
Okay. Hey, if it's some nice, I like the I have the ankle socks, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Okay.
regular socks, and I also have the Nike, the mid calf socks that for when I wear pants or whatever. But I need to get some like that's like a little bit over your ankles.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, kind of like the mid,
Yeah. I'm wearing
the
those.
shorter
I'm
than
wearing
mid
those right
calf.
now. Yeah. They're not
Okay.
ankles. They're not crew socks. They're not
I don't know what it's
ankle.
called.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to get some of those. So if you want to get me that,
you better not get mad at me. Yep.
okay, I'll be very happy. It's like, oh, I actually needed this.
Yeah. No, it's funny.
But another thing I'm kind of realizing as I'm going through this book, looking at all the things I highlighted, the author stresses a lot on freedom. And we kind of talked about freedom in a way that, you know, he can move whenever he wants because it's so easy.
Right.
And then actually as a digital nomad lifestyle is on the rise, like that's going to fit well with them too.
Oh yeah.
Because there's so many people that wants to travel. And as long as you get a nice, cushy remote job, you can do that. You can live as long as your company allows it, you can move around a lot. You can live very cheap. And because you live very cheap, you can afford that next plane ticket to some exotic place that you want to live. And that's like a cool way to live. And then he just keeps focusing on the freedom portion, which is huge for me.
Yeah.
Just freedom from anything, freedom from your job, freedom from your life, freedom from your obligation. It's like the less, like the things that you need to be there for, I think more rich your life is.
Okay. And I think that's something everybody works towards. It's like some degree of freedom. You can hate traveling, but I'm pretty confident you still want to be like free of anything that like holds your time, or like you can want like autonomy over your time. So like, yeah, it's like who doesn't want to be free? And to what you're saying, kind of like we said, minimalism can fit in different pockets of your life. Financial freedom, physical freedom to move around, mental freedom that I kind of been alluding to a little bit. So yeah, I think freedom actually is a huge, I don't know, maybe like subcategory of this topic, but they kind of goes hand in hand.
You think about we say rich, but like one is being a doctor, for example, right? Like they're very rich. I wouldn't say they're wealthy, depends on the doctor. But because even though they make a lot of money, that doesn't mean that they're free.
100%.
Right? Because they may be slave to that hospital that he works at. And he or she may be working 12-hour shifts. They go home, and then because he's the only expert, he gets called back in for emergency surgery next day. Like that's not freedom.
Not at all.
You're just a high earner.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's a great point. Yeah.
The freedom, definitely. If you go minimalism, it will get you closer to freedom.
Right. I try, and I like truly believe that.
And towards they cover in the middle of the book, and I'm not going to go through it because there's 55 tips in here on how to become. He says 55 tips to help you say goodbye to your things.
Okay.
And that's the title of the book, Goodbye Things.
Got it. And were there any specific ones that like really jumped out to you?
Yeah, so a lot of strategy wise, I was kind of looking through it, and one of the ones that stuck out to me was like get rid of something if you haven't used it in a year, which it's like hard to tell if you have used it in a year.
Yeah.
But what my wife was talking about separately growing up in her household, she used to every beginning of, I don't know, pick a month or a season or whatever.
Right.
She'll have all her clothes in she'll flip it. She'll flip the hangers in one direction. And if you wear that shirt, when you put it back, you flip that hanger, showing that you have actually worn it. And I was like, I could probably, that's something easy that you can
I
start
like
implementing in
that.
her life. Because I know I have shirts in there from like high school that I probably
Yeah.
never wear. I just haven't thrown it away.
Dang, that's
So
nice.
it's like, that's something that you can easily do.
Yeah.
And one of the things is saying goodbye. Another tip is to say goodbye to the person that you used to be. It's like the identity shift, the piece that we were talking about earlier, because so many things are tied to your identity. Like if you're humble and your ego is not through the roof, you can make that switch to be that, transform your life into the minimalist lifestyle, and that's gonna come with identity shift because you're throwing so many things away.
Yeah.
And I was like, it just more emphasizes you as that person rather than some identity that was like flopped on top of the person you are.
Right. Yeah.
Like I was in the Navy before this, and when you asked me this question, it was like, if I were to pass away or whatever, what do you want people to be remembered as?
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I'm still trying to figure it out. At that time, I didn't really have something that I thought people would remember me as. And people that didn't really know me, I think they would just put that blanket like job title as who I
like he was. Yeah.
And at least in the Navy, like you just kind of live that lifestyle, so that kind of becomes your identity. And I was talking about it with people on my ship. Was like, because you're in the Navy since you graduate college, a lot of the officers I was talking to is like their identity becomes, I'm a naval officer.
Yeah.
And like that's not me.
Yeah.
That just may be what I do, but that's just not me though. You know what I mean? It was just kind of a sad statement, even though it may be prestigious. Looking outside in, it's like, oh, he's a naval officer. So
yeah. Oh no. I mean, as you know, as like one of my close friends, but I couldn't relate to that more. That it's not who I am, and this might be a whole nother conversation because I think it's one of the topic we want to get onto is like who like defines you or does society define you, but just circling back, I think part of that freedom as a byproduct of minimalism is again free from these titles that are placed on you. And for you saying that, minimalism isn't slapped on your head, I completely agree. And that's when I say like it's a spectrum, it's something you slowly gravitate towards or away from. It's not, you don't wake up and you're a minimalist. It's like, okay, you do one thing different and something else. Okay, then maybe you have a habit here, and then all of a sudden now you live a certain way that kind of identifies with how a minimalist live. Yeah.
And the one thing that highlighted, I didn't, obviously there was 55 of them. I didn't highlight many, but it says, he's talking about an item or a particular item. He says, if you lost it, would you buy it again? And like, oh, that's so powerful because like, if I lost my phone, I would, and I knew that I lost my phone. Next minute I will be going to get a new phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then if I lost like one of my pairs of shoes, like I'll be fine without it for a little bit. I might get one in the future, but that is not a necessity. As long as you have like a couple shoes that goes well with multiple outfits, you're good. Right. So
dang, that's good.
Yeah, so I don't really buy stuff in the first place.
Yeah,
but I need to start thinking about it like that. If you lost it, would you buy again?
That's good. I'm almost laughing at what you just said because, as you know, my mom's in town visiting me this weekend, and she literally today, yesterday she lost. We were out somewhere and she had some earrings on, and she lost one. And we were in a store today that had those same earrings, and she bought a new pair. So I just think that's hilarious.
So maybe she did.
Super
maybe
she did. Yeah. I talked to my mom about some minimalism tactics.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's hilarious. Okay. So I have a question. I've been thinking about a couple questions, but what's one thing, either habit, physical, maybe that's it, that you think you could cut out of your life tomorrow? I say you can, but just like you think you could, you would be okay
The
without.
one thing that I've been having trouble with, it may literally go against this episode and what I said,
Okay.
but this is a recent phenomenon. It's
Okay,
not.
okay.
This isn't what I'm used to living
Yeah.
like.
All right.
But I don't. My Amazon account, I don't have Amazon Prime. I just have the regular Amazon. My wife has the Amazon Prime account, so I just been sending her Amazon links of the stuff that I want,
Yeah.
and then she knows to buy them. So
Yeah.
it just kind of gets bought, and a few days later, it just shows up.
Okay.
And I'm just like, when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, I wanted it so bad. But now that it's here, like, there's a couple of them that I haven't even. It's opened. It's open from the Amazon box, but it's not open from
It's
the
not-
actual box that the
Yeah,
product's in.
yeah. You didn't even.
I'm like, dude, I did not freaking need this thing. So I think that Amazon, and they have
Mhm.
that one-click buy.
Dude, I was just about to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you don't need that.
That's
It's just
society.
consumer trap.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's a great example. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, man. I'm very much looking forward to a minimalist journey. And when I think of minimalist, aside from, I guess there's two things that kind of come in my head. Aside from the like physical manifestation of minimalism, like you said, I think of like empty house, like nothing really in the house. But I also think of maybe like a Buddhist monk, like somebody that embodies, maybe as a person example, like that embodies that ideology, and how I feel like one of their goals is like ultimate freedom of like worldly things, essentially. And again, from the Maslow's hierarchy perspective, like that self-actualization, like just reaching the highest form of yourself and having the ultimate clarity and maybe your purpose and stuff. I just hear things like that and I'm like, how does that not sound appealing? Do I want to be a Buddhist monk? Like, no. Am I gonna try? I have no desire. But the things that they strive for and that their religions or cultures or practices look to strive for is very much appealing to me, to the point where I kind of want to learn more about their practices and stuff and see what like snippets of lifestyles like that I can take and adopt for myself. Because again, I think that's, I don't know, for me it just feels like I'm elevating myself. So
Okay.
it's, and then that might not be the case for everybody, but that's how like minimalism for me feels like I can just kind of, I guess, capitalize on it. I guess, I don't know.
So you're talking about it. What's
I
one
gotta do
thing
it.
there's a little bit of time left in 2024, but let's say next year in 2025, what's one thing that you want to implement in your life from a minimalist standpoint and getting towards the minimalist lifestyle?
Yeah. So this is it's been on my mind heavy actually lately, and it's kind of the perfect question because because I want to do it in 2025. So I said I want to move to the city, but the reason I want to move to the city, which is good for this conversation, twofold. One, it will force me to literally shed physical items that I have that, again, I could probably do without, if I'm being real, right? So that's one thing. But two, where I want to move in the city, I think it really aligns with kind of who I am. And I think in the sense that it'll give me creative outlets for myself, and I'll be able to do some things that don't require spending money, having physical things, like get outside. I don't know if I told you, like I kind of want to join a run club. Yeah, I want to join a run club. So that's like a health benefit and a social benefit, but also, I mean, even if the run club does cost money, like one-time fee, whatever. I think it'll have multiple benefits. So just stuff like that, aligning with more who I am, but in a way that's non-materialistic. And then because I will downsize, it will also shed physical stuff. So I'm looking to, and even if I don't move next year, because there's a possibility I don't, still want to do things that that kind of align with what I just said. But my ultimate goal, to straight up answer your question, is I want to move, which will force me to downsize, and then also where I'm moving will help me kind of just align with who I am better and bring out those parts of me that aren't materialistic and that are more natural and organic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Very beautiful.
Yeah. That's a good question. Cool. All right. So
before we start wrapping things up,
yeah,
I just want to say, again, if anyone listening wants to read it, it's called Goodbye Things. on Minimalist Living by Fumio Sasaki. So I'll throw that in the description if anyone ever taps on those. But it's there if anyone needs it.
Awesome. I got to dive into that myself. That's really cool. I wish I had a book recommendation on minimalistic lifestyle. I don't, but I'll probably read that. So appreciate that, B. Thank you for all the listeners. Thank you for listening to the conversation. We love it. And we won't add too much. We'll keep this minimal. And we'll see y'all next week.